In this video, I will talk about mapping URLs and downloading web page content. So remember the 3 steps in web scraping. First, mapping the URLs. Second, downloading the HTML of the web page. And third, parsing this HTML. In this video, I will talk about the first 2 steps, mapping URLs and downloading the HTML. So let's get started. First, mapping. Mapping is all about how do we find the relevant URLs of the web pages that we want to web scrape. To do that, we need to navigate the websites to collect the relevant links. And we need to do that in an automatic way, so we can let the computer do the job for us. So how do we do that? So we can exploit that URLs are built using a recognizable pattern. So a nice trick for us is to understand this pattern and how it is constructed to communicate with the server. And here I just listed some example of how a URL is constructed. For example, a slash is like folders on your computer. A question mark entails the start of a query with parameters. So a parameter can, for example, be page, offset, show number. These are examples of parameters. And you use the equation mark to define these parameters. You also have the AND symbol, and it is used to separate different parameters. And lastly, you can use the plus which is HTML for white space. Okay, so now let's look at an example. So let's go to Job Index, which is a job portal in Denmark. And then we'll just click around and take notes of how the URL is made. So in this first page, you can see a lot of job posts. And suppose we want to scrape these job posts. So if we go to the bottom of the page, we will see that the posts are listed in a lot of different pages. So we are on page 1. If you go to page 2, so then notice how the URL changes. So remember that the question mark entails the start of our parameters, and we have a parameter called page, which is now equal to 2. So this tells us that the URL changes with the number of the page list we are at, and we can use that to go through all the job posts and web scrape them all. So let's see how to do that. Okay, suppose we want to create the URLs for the first 5 pages. Now we know the pattern of the URL, so we can exploit that pattern. And that is what I do here. First, I create an empty list where I want to keep the links I create. Then I use a for loop going from 1 to 6, excluding 6, and with a step of 1 each time. And I use that to create the URLs, each one of a time. And I create the URLs using fstring, where I can post each number of the loop at the page place here. And then I append this URL to the link list I made before. And the result is this. I now have a list with 5 links, 5 URLs, And the only difference between these URLs is that the page parameter is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, as we saw at the job index webpage. So now we have 5 links, and we need to do something with these links. We want to connect to the web pages of these links, and then we want to download their content. So remember, this is the second step of our web scraping recipe. So here is how you connect to and download the HTML of a web page in Python. You can use the request package as you have used before to connect to the job index web page. Here is the page 1, and we save that to the object response. And you can then use the function text to actually see what we have saved. So what you can see here is the HTML of the web page, and that is what we are interested in downloading. Right now, it seems very unstructured, but in the next session you will learn how to deal with this HTML. When you request the content of a web page, it is good practice to tell who you are to the web page owner. So you can do that by writing your name and email in the header of your request, and you do that by writing headers and then using a dictionary where I write my name as the key, and then value is my name, and then another key called email, and then my email. And then the managers of the web page will know that you're not a malicious actor, you're not a hacker that would like their data. Okay, we now want to download the content of all 5 links we made earlier. And we do that in a very similar way as making the 5 links. First, we have an empty list where I want to keep the HTML I download. Then I use a for loop where I go through the links in links. And for each link I call URL, I get the content of the web page, and I save it in response. Then I get the HTML of that web page called HTML, and then I append the HTML to the list I created earlier. And the result of that is a messy list of all 5 HTML strings. So it doesn't make a lot of sense right now, but we will talk more about that tomorrow. Another good practice is to limit the rate of your calls to the website. Why do you do that? So if you don't limit the rate of your calls and you request a lot of websites, web pages on this website, then the server might crash. And the owner of the website is not happy about that, and a consequence might be that you will be excluded from the website. But you can limit your calls with the method time.sleep, and let's see how to do that. So here we have the same code as before, where I request the 5 HTMLs of the 5 pages, and in the in the bottom of the code, I have added this line that says time.sleep, and then the loop sleeps for a half second, and then goes to the next link. So that is a way to limit how many calls you make per second or per minute. So notice that I have also added another method here in the beginning of the loop, and this method is used to track the time left before completing the loop. So that is a nice little function that you can use to estimate how much time you use to complete these web scraping loops.